So today's workshop, Jump on Board for Success, the Job Supported Employment for Youth. I'm very excited to introduce to you Laura Flint, Vermont Department of Mental Health Senior Evidence-Based Practices Evaluator and Supported Employment Services Coordinator. Clara Haynes, HireAbility Transition Program Associate Manager. And we have Jesse Lawrence, a vocational coordinator at Clara Martin Center, as well as Holly Benoir at the Vocational Services Coordinator. Welcome, everyone.
You're muted, Laura.
Go ahead. Muted. Laura, you're muted.
Okay, let's try that again. We are very excited to be with the Vermont Family Network today and all of you to share information about the JOBS program, which stands for Jump on Board for Success. And today I will be presenting as well as Clara, and I'll let Clara introduce herself, but I'm Laura Flint. I use she, her pronouns. I work with the Department of Mental Health and have been partnering with HireAbility for, I don't know, about 20 years now around the JOBS program, just offering support to the programs across the state of Vermont. And I also have spent about 30 years now working with evidence-based supported employment, which is geared towards adults that are experiencing significant mental illness. So Clara, do you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Clara Haynes. I'm the Transition Program Associate Manager for HireAbility. I've been in this role less than a year, but I've been with HireAbility for a little over 5 years, most of that time as a transition counselor in the Rutland and Bennington offices. But I've been working with high-risk youth for about 20 years now.
And the goal of today's presentation is to increase awareness and understanding about the JOBS program. And the information today is really geared towards families and parents and our community partners. So we'll be sharing a little bit about what JOBS is and the funding behind JOBS, who the JOBS program serves, and eligibility for the JOBS program. I'll talk a little bit about outcomes and hear about successes, particularly from one JOBS program down at Clara Martin Center, and talk about ways that referrals can be made to the JOBS programs, and have time for questions and answers at the end. So how does the JOBS program work? It's first and foremost a voluntary service for young adults that are in transition. And it's a program that is a partnership between HireAbility Vermont and the Department of Mental Health, but it's also through a collaboration with the Department of Children, Youth, and Family Services and Department of Corrections. So it's a real across the board partnership, if you will, with these organizations. And it's an innovative practice to serve these young adults in transition. The staff provide very creative and innovative ways of supporting youth. It often involves intense assistance to help youth address barriers they may be experiencing around housing, relationships in their lives, and community resources that they need to receive or navigate, and other potential issues that might be affecting their success around independent living. So the JOBS program, while it would be wonderful if it was open for every youth in transition that might need or want that type of support, it really is geared towards youth that are 16 to 21 through their last day of their 21st year, so up until 22. And it's for youth that meet the eligibility criteria for Act 264. And in that act, there's a definition for severe emotional disturbance. It has a definition around who would be eligible for jobs, but it's really geared for those youth that are at the highest risk for getting involved with juvenile justice. They're at a high risk of leaving school or have already left school. They might be experiencing homelessness or substance use challenges. They may be experiencing some form of abuse, whether it's physical abuse or sexual abuse in your life. So it really is for those youth that need some support, and often youth that may have not been engaging in services. So this slide here, and we won't read it. It's very word intense, but it's the definition for Act 264. And Act 264 was really geared around a system of care for children in mental health, but you can go online and read this if you have an interest. And we've created a link in the PowerPoint, which the PDF of the PowerPoint will be available. So the basic program philosophy around the jobs program is that many youth, regardless of whether they have a disability or not, have an interest in finding employment. And that's really the piece that the jobs program offers for engaging these youth in transition. And it's focusing on helping youth discover their career goals, helping them with obtaining employment if that's their choice, or helping with education or training to further their career and life aspirations. And the supports that are provided are very holistic. It's almost a wraparound type of support because it involves intensive case management, which is different from traditional supported employment programs. In traditional supported employment programs, the case management would be offered separate from the actual employment service. But with jobs, it's all combined and a way to really support that youth with any of the barriers that might be coming up in their life. And we might talk more about what some of those services are later on. So I'll go to the next slide. And these are really the practice principles that the jobs counselors use when working with these young adults. And it's really meant to help youth mitigate life challenges by helping these youth identify and access their strengths, work with their resilience, and look for leadership potential in all of these youth. The goal really is to help young adults improve their quality of life through meaningful employment or post-secondary education, if that's their goal, or other training or types, it could be training, not necessarily college, post-secondary education. It's really about what the youth wants. So that's the goal that the job staff have when meeting with youth, is to really find out what it is that unique youth has for aspirations. But in general, these 8 principles are around helping the youth from the start and not making them wait to get services, that the youth are supported to find meaningful work in their community that anybody could apply for and interview for, and that the youth voice is central to all the services provided. So it's really youth-centered, the jobs programs. And knowing about that youth's financial situation or healthcare insurance, any kind of benefits that youth might get, helping them understand how work plays into those benefits and helping them make an informed choice about the type of work or next steps that they might take in their life. And if a youth says that they do want to work, then they will be supported to find that job immediately. They won't be made to jump through hoops or show that they are capable of working first. They are supported right out of the gate. And a big piece of the jobs program is having partners in the community that the job staff and the youth are working with. So it's a very partnership oriented type of program. And once the youth has achieved one or all of their goals, they will still receive supports if they want that. And if they get to be too old, like if they turn 22 and they're not eligible for the jobs program, they can still receive supports ongoing through HireAbility. So it's a wonderful transition to adulthood type of program. And this slide is really just talking about the fact that there's been a change, I feel like, over the years, where in the past we were quite focused on, well, we have to help you kind of mitigate these symptoms that you're experiencing before we can think about employment or education. And now it's really about, you know, focusing on discovery and not so much you need to be recovered from what you might be experiencing around mental health. So it's a focus on discovery, and then also looking at career goals and not just treatment goals. So it's really around exploring and doing. And that leads into some of the guidelines that the jobs program is centered around. And again, you'll see this as a theme: relationships and helping youth develop a positive relationship with the jobs staff, and engaging youth around youth-centered type services is really important. A lot of times youth may have felt misunderstood and didn't necessarily want to be going to high school. They felt disconnected. You know, there's many different reasons how a youth gets to where they are. And so the jobs staff are quite skilled at engaging young adults. So the services are tailored to that youth and helping that youth perhaps engage and be in the community, because that's where a lot of youth want to be, is in the community, not always in a clinician's office. So they'll meet the youth where the youth would prefer to be met. And job staff are working hard to develop positive adult relationships and a safety net for that young adult. And another key guideline is the dignity of risk, helping youth take healthy risk, because that's what helps us all grow. And again, youth are driving the services, what they would like to be doing, and their choices and their unique talents and strengths are driving the services. And lastly, data and outcomes that are youth and person-centered help maintain the quality of the jobs programs and are important to its sustainability. So that's another focus. There are shared values across the Department of Mental Health and HireAbility. Both of our organizations come under the Agency of Human Services. So with HireAbility, as you can see on the slide, the mission is to help Vermonters with disabilities prepare for, obtain, and maintain meaningful careers, and to help employers recruit, train, and retain and promote employees with disabilities. So there's a dual customer approach with HireAbility. And with the Department of Mental Health, I should say HireAbility is part of the Department for Aging and Independent Living, which is DAIL. And you'll see that acronym on the next slide. And the Department of Mental Health is also part of the Agency of Human Services, with a mission to promote and improve the health of Vermonters. And health also includes mental health. And Department of Mental Health services include early intervention, treatment, and supports as needed to live, work, learn, and participate fully in our community. So you hopefully can see our shared values and why we're coming together to support these jobs programs.
Laura, I can jump in on this one if you want.
Sure. Thank you, Clara.
So the first jobs program was started roughly 30 years ago. We now have 10 different service sites that serve every county in the state. It is a partnership between the local agency providing the direct case management and vocational supports at the job sites and the local HireAbility staff. And then it's overseen by Laura and I at the central office level. The pie chart is a lovely breakdown of percentages of funding. The sources are HireAbility, not just our general fund dollars, but also our specific ticket to work monies through Social Security, the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Corrections, the Family Services Division of the Department for Children and Families, and the Department of Aging and Independent Living at the agency level also contribute funding. Really talking about not just collaboration for each individual youth, but cross-agency collaboration to address services for what I would argue is perhaps the most high-risk population of youth, where criminal justice and disability overlap. Go ahead. So here's some data, because Laura and I love data. If you don't like data, then I apologize. You're going to hear some data. We went back and looked at the number of youth served since 2018, and we have served just around 300 youth per year across the 10 sites. During the pandemic, we did see a small dip in services, but not nearly as much as other programs might have seen, because our youth were generally disconnected from school already, or the shift to virtual learning actually was a benefit to them because they didn't have to go to school and deal with the social aspects of it. And also they were already in the workforce or trying to enter the workforce. And during the pandemic was a unique time for young people that were willing to show up and work to do so. We are very lucky to have, Laura, do you have something else you wanted to add?
Oh, no, I was just, I would add that the jobs programs during the pandemic were fantastic in terms of, yeah, like what you were saying, Clara, continuing to do the outreach. I mean, there was some, for an example, a creative way of engaging youth was to use the video to even just share music that was of interest to the youth, and using that as a way to help the youth feel comfortable turning their video camera on. It was just learning how to engage youth in a virtual setting, which has continued to be a really helpful approach for some youth. So I just, give a lot of kudos to the job staff out there.
The number of meetings that happened in parks, that happened on walking trails, to maintain social distance, but still maintain social connection, was really, really powerful to hear about.
And now we are very excited to be able to have a guest share about a success story from the Clara Martin Center Jobs Program. So we have Holly Benoir and Jesse Lawrence from the Clara Martin Center. I will stop sharing so that they can introduce themselves and share this story with you.
Okay, I'm Holly Benoir. I am the Vocational Services Coordinator for the Clara Martin Center. I'm actually the outgoing coordinator because my retirement is on the near horizon. And Jesse Lawrence, who has served as our jobs case manager and has gained expertise in working with the youth, will be taking on that position as well as continuing to provide the direct service to that population. Jesse?
Yeah, it's nice to be here with the opportunity to speak about a success story that we've had with one of our clients in the Clara Martin Center. And what Clara and Laura had said is just, I can't speak highly enough about the collaborative relationship. It just really is such a supportive program, and there's been a lot of success stories. And Holly's kind enough to read a little bit of a summary as to what one of our clients had to say about their work with us in the program.
Yes, so true to the S in the acronym JOBS, we do have a great success story to share about a client, Brittany, excuse me. It's a powerful story behind how HireAbility and our jobs program at the Clara Martin Center have supported her around transitioning to independent living, exploring jobs, and taking steps to realize career dreams. So I will launch into the narrative that Brittany kindly wrote for us. And she's very involved in a training program, so was unable to be here herself today to do this. When I first started working with the jobs program, I was at a very low point in my life. Jesse and many others at the Clara Martin Center have helped me find out where I truly belong, and they continue to assist me in many aspects of life, as well as help support me through the Career Training Offset program, where I log the hours I am at school and I get paid. I can't even start to imagine where I would be without that extra money. I'm a 19-year-old college student supporting myself. The peace of mind of knowing I'll be able to pay rent allows me to be completely focused on my studies. And I can remain a full-time student and not have to take time to have a job as well. Another way the jobs program has supported my studies is when they paid the full expense of my kit for cosmetology school, which was a few $1,000s, as well as when I had COVID and couldn't attend school. They reimbursed me for having to pay to fill my propane tank when I wasn't being paid. When I first started working with the jobs program, I was in high school in a tech program for health careers. I was working to get my LNA, and at the end of my junior year, I had completed the LNA course. With the help of Jesse, I got my first job at a nursing home. I worked hard and I loved helping people. After about a year, I moved on to working at another nursing home in hopes that I would be more satisfied with my job. However, again, I found myself just not enjoying my work. Even though I still loved helping people, the work was draining. I expressed my concerns to Jesse, and he helped me find out what other career paths I might be interested in exploring. I immediately expressed my love for hair and makeup and everything beauty involved. Jesse went to work instantly, looking into cosmetology schools and classes in the area. Within a few days, I decided I was going to go to hair school and quit my job as an LNA. I wouldn't change a thing about my decision to switch careers, and I value the experiences I have had, but I would not have been able to do any of it without my support system at the Clara Martin Center. This program has definitely changed my life for the better. I now hope to continue working with Jesse on my profession as a cosmetologist. I am hoping that in the next 5 years, I am in the position to own my own salon.
Yeah, and it's such a great story, and there are a lot of success stories, and I wish that we could share more. But it really goes to show that the collaborative nature of none of these successes could happen without her advocation, our work together, and the partnership between HireAbility and the Department of Mental Health.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Holly and Jesse. And I didn't know if people had any questions for Holly or Jesse. We do have a couple minutes probably to allow for that if people have any questions, since they're working directly with a jobs program.
I'm waiting to see something in the chat. Currently, we don't have any questions. There was a comment. I'm hoping that young people are seeing these same principles in their clinicians' therapy practices as well. That was one comment. And again, it's open for questions, but currently there is nothing else in the chat.
And we'll have time for questions at the end. There is a few more slides
Yes.
to
Okay.
go through. And Holly and Jesse have agreed to stay to the end. So if you think of a question between now and the end, they will still be here and available.
Okay, I would respond to that comment that teamwork at our agency is a very big part of the process. So the therapy element is involved in many of the cases with our jobs clients.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly. Yes, I think that's one of us is not as smart as all of us. So when we have a team approach, it really makes a big difference. And I don't know if I shared in the beginning of the presentation how a youth might get connected with jobs, which is, you know, they might have a referral to the local mental health center, but then after getting acquainted and open to services at the local mental health center, they would be referred and open to services at HireAbility. And that is a really key component of the teamwork, but there might also be other key partners in that. And I would say we know from research when families are part of that with permission from the youth, there is greater success. So that is something that the jobs program would also, you know, support, is including that family. So these are just some other successes in general that have been seen by the jobs program over time. And having youth engage for 6 or more months in services is actually pretty incredible as a success, especially for these youth who haven't wanted to engage in services. Back when this program was first started, it was started because the youth were they weren't going to school, they weren't working, they didn't really have a lot of positive activities happening in their life. And so this program was developed, it started in Washington County to really locate and support those young adults and engage them around that employment piece. Then starting to talk about, you know, things like therapy or positive problem solving skills. It wasn't like, hey, come to our local mental health center, because that wasn't really what youth wanted, right? They wanted the job, they wanted something to do on the weekend, they wanted a car, they wanted perhaps their own independent living place. And so the jobs program really helps youth engage on that level with things that they want. So you can see from youth staying engaged for 6 or more months, that's part of the process. And you know, when they exit the jobs program, whether it's because they've turned 22 or because they're feel like they've achieved the success that they were hoping for, a lot of them are employed or engaged in an education or training program. And the things that they're doing are based on what they want to do. It's based on their choices. Another component is that youth who might enter the jobs program that don't have health insurance are almost always helped to find that health insurance, whether it's private health insurance or Medicaid. They are helped to find that health insurance and to access primary care services, because youth are going from perhaps a pediatrician and, you know, entering the adult world where they need to have a primary care. So that's another positive success. And if they are identified as a youth who might be struggling with substance use, they're offered a substance use screening to find out like what might be necessary or desired to support them through that. Other areas where I feel like jobs programs would say their success is helping youth find independent housing, accessing a driver's license, access to actually owning a vehicle. I mean, these are really big accomplishments for youth in transition, and getting their high school diploma or GED and improving relationships with people in their lives. I'm sure there's, as Jesse mentions, there's so many more actual success stories that could be shared if there were time. So how can a family member or a community partner or even a youth themselves access the jobs program? You know, you could do self-referral. So we have heard actually of youth referring themselves because they had a friend who went through the jobs program and they were like, wow, that sounds amazing. I would like to be able to get connected to that as well. It can be a referral from school. There's transition counselors that are located in all high schools. So that's one way too. The transition counselor at the high school or the guidance counselor or even a teacher can make a referral. And there's community partners. So the Department for Children and Families, there's YIT, which is the Youth in Transition. DOC is the Department of Corrections, Youth Development Programs, Community Restorative Centers. All of these organizations hopefully have information about the jobs program and can make referrals on behalf of that young adult or family. And then mental health counselors. So there's private mental health counselors, and then there's the local community mental health centers that also have counselors. And a good thing to know is that as a youth is perhaps getting open to mental health services, if that's something that the youth has wanted, to be sure to ask about the jobs program in their area and ask for a referral. This is where the jobs programs are located across the state. There's one in every county. And this slide might be too small to see all of the information, but again, you will receive a copy so you can have access to this contact information. And if you have questions after viewing this presentation, feel free to reach out to any of the folks that you're seeing under the contacts. We have contacts for HireAbility and for the Department of Mental Health. And then we want to end with any questions or comments that you might have. So I will stop sharing.
I do see we have a question here from Belinda Webster. The question is, are the community partners limited to those? I work for Northeast Kingdom NECA Youth Services, and I work with them often, but I'm just starting to work with NKHS. Can we make referrals as well?
Yes. So the short answer is yes. For the jobs program, it doesn't matter so much where the referral comes from, just as long as the referral is made. You don't have to be certain that the youth is fully eligible for the jobs program. Each individual jobs program will screen the youth for jobs eligibility, going back to whether they meet the Act 264 definition, if they meet the age range, if the youth wants to work with the program. Those are all determining factors. But the best that you could do is just make the referral. And if you are working with an organization that works with youth who tend to be at higher risk of dropout or have dropped out, who are in adult basic education programs, who may have involvement with criminal justice, all of those things, those youth would be appropriate referrals. And if there's a specific person at NKHS, Stacy and Sky are the jobs case managers up there. And if you want, I can connect you with them just so you can have a conversation in general about youth that you might work with in the future.
Great. I'm waiting for some more questions, but one question that has come up is, and the person who responded said, thank you, that would be amazing. So if you can put that in the chat, Clara, that would be great. How many youth who are in the jobs program who are looking at high school completion or GED, how many of them are participating in any dual enrollment post-secondary opportunities? I'm just curious. I know there was a high school completion program where students could create their own. If anyone can address that, I'd love to hear.
It varies by program to program. Some programs have slightly younger youth, and so those youth tend to be working more on high school completion and might be utilizing a dual enrollment or a single CCV class to get them re-engaged with education. Some programs tend a little bit older, so they're 19, 20, 21-year-olds, so they're looking at apprenticeships or training programs or fully matriculated college experiences. Based on our anecdotal meeting with programs every quarter, Laura and I would say that more than half of youth engaged with the jobs program at any time are engaged in some form of education that is developmentally appropriate and meets the youth's wants, desires, and needs. And for some youth, that's high school, some it's a GED, some it's a single class, some it's a certification, some it's college.
Great, thank you. So are there any other questions coming from our viewers? I'm not seeing any in the chat. I'll give you a minute if there's any more questions coming up. Not seeing any. I'm going to just say many thanks to all of you. This was really helpful information, and you'll see a link to the evaluation in the chat. Please take a few minutes to complete it so we can make improvements and fulfill our grant requirements. We do have many more interesting workshops coming up, and you can find details about those on our homepage of our website, which is vermontfamilynetwork.org, along with links to previously recorded ones. We've got tons of information with links, and getting connected with us is really easy. You can follow us on Facebook or join our closed Facebook page if you're a parent. We also have 2 closed Facebook groups. One's for all parents of children with disabilities and special health needs, and one is for those with adult children. You can also sign up for our monthly e-newsletter or check out our YouTube channel. We have lots and lots of information there. So we're here to help. Please contact us by phone or email, and look for us on Instagram. That's new for Vermont Family Network. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.